as myself, Titan, and Emily left that steel mill and began running outside, we immediately took note of the fact that we were in an industrial area of the city. Everything around for miles seemed to be just one factory after the next, whether they were running or not, depending on who was utilizing them or how long they had been acquired for. But we took note of the direction of the nearest city section, where we might find actual people, and not just employees, of one company or another, and immediately began running in that direction. Until I was overcome with another sudden rush of information. After getting about 600 yards away from the factory that we had left, suddenly there was yet another rush of information, and my head was filled with countless things. Suddenly I started getting updates on position, temperature, weather, projected weather fluctuations, in-depth maps to the city, and reference to our location in it, direct access links to the internet. I even began to see everything overlaid within my line of sight, everything getting a neat little label. The moment I thought about going to a destination, suddenly I would see a numerous amount of lines arranged in different patterns or colors, and instinctively know which ones were the shortest and which ones were the longest, what all the patterns and colors meant. For example, I could decide to go down the line that took me directly through buildings and structures, regardless of what dangers might be there, or whether there might be obstacles, or take one of the more solid lines, which indicates a road-based path, where I'm unlikely to deal with obstacles, and the only thing that differs is how long it will take me if I take that course. Buildings and factories all had labels indicating purpose, function, company owner. It was actually a bit dizzying to see at first. "Ah, it's back!" I heard Titan's voice announce as I looked over to her, seeing a big smile on her face. "My internet connection, it's back! And oh my gosh, it's even better! The information is transmitting so fluidly, so rapidly. I've already started downloading updated data and it's done already. That's insane! I love it! I know exactly where we're supposed to go." "Yeah, that makes two of us," I replied. "I'm getting basically the same thing." "What? So you two got GPS in your heads and internet connections? What a rip. I'm not getting anything," Emily said as she looked at me and Titan, a bit upset. "Why is it that I got covered with creepy slime, stuck into an egg for 3 days, and you two seem to be the only ones who've gotten any superpowers out of it? I'm starting to feel like I got ripped off. This believer guy must not like me that much." "Yeah, I suppose we can talk about the disgruntlement of your lack of abilities later. Right now, I think we should focus on getting the hell out of here." "Fine," Emily replied. "Let's find some place where we can catch a cab or something." And the moment she said the words, a new line popped up in my overlay line of sight, leading me directly to a place where I could get a cab. "And I already know where to go," I replied, beginning to lead the way there. Eventually, it took us to an office segment attached to a factory where they did clerical work. They, of course, had access to internet and phones, and had no problem letting us use them. In the moment, I was considering calling my dad at biotech. However, I still didn't know what was going on with me, Titan, and Emily. I thought it would be a better idea to go home and call him from there. So the first thing we did was simply call a taxi, transport, and order a ride back to the main mansion, our estate. Luckily, Newgate City definitely had some perks. For example, there was no longer any need to carry around official identification, as pretty much any business that was worth its salt, and that includes taxi cabs, had technology that could access a personality mainframe in the city. Basically, it would scan you and input your identity, facial structure, genetics, fingerprints, eye scan analysis, only in a few seconds. And as soon as it was done, you could immediately access anything you owned. If you had money in the bank, you could spend it, regardless of where you were or what time it was. The ease of the future. The devices could even register your state. For example, if you seemed like you were over-agitated, like perhaps being held captive, the machine could actually differentiate that emotional state and the physical responses from all of your other individual physical responses and states. Tell the difference between fear and just roundabout stress. And if the computer thought you were being coerced in any way, like perhaps there was someone standing around with a gun to your head, and the feelings that might bring up, it would simply lock down and prevent you access, as you were currently being coerced, which made mugging basically useless. A crime of the past that can no longer really be committed, at least not by anyone without a great amount of effort into trying to hack that system, which is run by biotech and basically unhackable. So, once the cab showed up, after a quick scan of me, I was able to pay him no problem, and the ride back to the mansion got started. Me, Titan, and Emily hopped into the back of the cab, and the driver took off towards the mansion. Cabs always had sort of a privacy screen, for which the people in the back of the cab could have some privacy from the driver. So once we were all inside, the questions started rolling, as we all attempted to catch our breath in the moment and start taking stock of things. Okay, so where are my abilities? Emily said, crossing her arms and looking over at me. So far, you two have already got cool in-your-head internet connections, with apparently massively upgraded download and upload speeds. Bet you're watching a movie or something right now, you jerks, she said, sounding a bit jealous. Emily, I'm sure that we got internet connections in our heads for a reason. Just like I'm sure that it didn't pull you into that egg for no reason whatsoever. Trust me, you got something out of that deal. The only question is what? I kind of feel like the Believer should have put a manual with this crap. Like maybe downloaded our heads with any of the information we needed. I mean, clearly he did it with Titan. So why couldn't he have done it with us? It would have made things so much simpler. Why would he plan all of this just to leave us power lackluster? Well, after you calculate the probabilities, Titan said, if we actually knew how to use our abilities, when we emerged from the egg, it would only increase the probability that we would attempt to fight our way out rather than cut a bargain. Negotiate for freedom. It's possible that the Believer, on these percentile chances, that being about a 30% increase in the chance of violence, decided to go with the option of simply denying us the access to that sort of knowledge out of the gate, in lieu of giving us information to barter with, which would work towards his advantage if his end goals involved having both us and this mother and her cult active. Suffice to say, I don't have enough information to make a reasonable assumption as to their approximate end goal. Only that at this point we can determine that both ourselves and that cult are necessary for it. Holy crap, I said, looking over to Titan. I had maybe a third of that information. How did you work all that out? I don't know, I just sort of did. In fact, I figured it out a few moments after I actually got the information. I thought you would have too. No, Titan, sorry. I didn't figure that one out. Maybe that's a difference in abilities. Perhaps I have increased processing, the ability to collate and quantify massive amounts of information in order to form advanced hypotheses, theories, and lines of reasoning. Basically, the process made me super smart. Well, what about the environmental stuff? Environmental stuff? Titan replied, looking at me a bit curiously. Yeah, I am getting constant readings of freaking everything. Every time I see or hear anything, that piece of information is quantified to the nanosecond. If a fly buzzes by, I not only note that that fly buzzed by, but actually calculate its weight, speed, trajectory, and the number of times that it beats its wings per minute. Why? I don't freaking know, but I can't make it stop. It's starting to give me a headache. Oh, that's interesting, Titan said, placing her hand on her chin for a moment as she looked at me. Increased perceptual intake, and the ability to quantify said perceptual intake. What? I replied. Listen, there's a limit to the amount of information that human beings can regularly take in, because there's a limit to the amount of information that they can process. We only, in fact, process a small amount of the full information that we take in at any given time. But your upgrade seems to have given you the ability to process all of it. The world hasn't slowed down or sped up. You've just begun to take notice and be able to quantify all of the things that are happening within your perceptual range. Well, what in the hell does that add up to? Why would I need that? Well, it's quite simple. The ability to do that would massively enhance your ability to actively respond in any situation. For example, if someone pulled a gun on you, a normal person wouldn't be able to quantify all of the data within the set situation and form a reasonable hypothesis based on it as to what their next course of action should be. But by massively increasing the level of which you can process active information in the environment, now your ability to respond, react, and take coordinated actions within that set course of events is dramatically increased. If you can count the beating of a fly's wings, then it might even be possible for you to track the path of a bullet. What? I replied. Yes, and that's not an underestimation either. It's highly probable that your perceptual skills or abilities have increased to the point that you can dodge a bullet. Actually watch it pass by. I'm actually interested to know whether it affected your physical abilities as well. It would be interesting to find out. Okay, that does sound pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, dodging bullets would definitely be a good exchange for this madness in my head. Oh great, and you get yet again another power. And I still have nothing. I don't feel any different at all, and everything seems normal to me. I don't have any internet connection, my senses seem to be working just like normal. I don't exactly feel super strong either. Every word you guys say is just starting to piss me off, Emily said, now starting to look out of the window in frustration.